On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder trade Josh Giddey to the Chicago Bulls. What comes next?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO ThunderPod. On today's show, brought to you by Prize Picks. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedInNBA. Use code LockedInNBA, all lowercase, for the first deposit match up to $100. We're talking Josh Giddey getting traded to the Chicago Bulls. This news quite literally broke 5 minutes ago. Immediately made the background, hopped on the pod, and here we are. So this podcast is going to be dated at 4/20. We'll see what happens with the full package coming out, if this is the full package in its entirety. But right now, the Thunder have traded Josh Giddey to the Chicago Bulls for Alex Caruso. And he is eligible, Caruso is, for a 4-year, approximately $80 million extension 6 months from this trade. The Thunder made this trade with the hopes of Caruso being a long-term player. So it sounds like the Thunder will want to give Caruso that extension in 6 months. That's according to Woj. So again, I just read that like that second as I just dated the spot at 4:20. So we're still going to get stuff on the fly. Therefore, this will be the initial reaction pod. We'll have many, many, many more pods on this topic. Now, let's look at this trade. So why did the Thunder trade Josh Giddey right now? I think that you were able to read it through the tea leaves, which is what we said on this podcast after the exit interview of, it's kind of strange that Sam Presti kept reiterating how the Thunder did not have to sign Josh Giddey this summer, whenever his past history tells you he does not let guys hit restricted free agency. And so when you blend that together with, there's no real pathway to just run it back. Like the actualized version of Josh Giddey, it sounds simple to just put him on the bench and let him run the show, because he can't do that in the starting lineup. However, in the modern NBA, whenever you are mix and matching and staggering lineups, there's still no way for Josh Giddey to run the show in Oklahoma City. So it's not fair to him. And that's why on this show we've been talking about how it's a two-sided situation. Like the Thunder and Josh Giddey can both like each other, can both hope that this worked out. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what's best for you. And I think that Josh Giddey will go on, especially with Billy Donovan and the Bulls, if they see him obviously as a player that they're coveting, like they're going to put him in a role that's best for him. You put Josh Giddey on the ball, you put Josh Giddey in a situation that is made for his skill set. I fully believe Josh Giddey will have a very long and very accomplished NBA career. Like I think he'll be a good NBA player. But sometimes you can be a good NBA player and not a good fit for your environment. We see this happen constantly. And so entering the last year of his deal, why would Josh Giddey want to play for a franchise that's not going to be putting him in a position, and that can't put him in a position to maximize his skill set, thus not maximize his earning potential? So from the Josh Giddey standpoint, I would assume that while it's hard to leave your friends and your first organization behind, I would assume that he welcomes this change. And from a Thunder standpoint, you absolutely got a much better fit for your roster in Alex Caruso. You got a much better fit for your roster. So you swap one guy who's on the last year of his deal that doesn't fit your roster for another guy who's on an expiring deal that does fit your roster, with the hopes of re-signing him, according to Woj. Now, that's all the Josh Giddey stuff. And we'll do more Josh Giddey stuff later, but let's talk about Alex Caruso. Again, this is just the initial pod. We have so much more to talk about that we can get to once we get our head around this whole trade. Alex Caruso, he makes $9.8 million this year, and then he's extension eligible in 6 months before his unrestricted free agency. So that's a big kicker. The Thunder are going to really have to extend him in 6 months, I think, if they're going to want to keep him as a part of their long-term future, which Woj says that they do. Because once you hit unrestricted free agency, all bets are off. The cap going up, and there's teams that are going to be desperate to improve. And Alex Caruso is one of those players that can fit any roster. Like, Alex Caruso is a chameleon. Like, he can change his stripes to fit your roster and fit like a glove, because you can never have too many Alex Carusos. So what Alex Caruso is 30 years old. Like, that is an older, more veteran-laden player who's won an NBA championship, albeit in the bubble, but he's played with, of course, like LeBron and all these other great players in LA, then with Chicago. You are very familiar with him, Alex Caruso, because he played with the Blue. So, like, internally within the organization, you know what he's about, and that's the key part of all of this, is like the connections and the trust that you would hypothetically have in Alex Caruso, given that you made this trade and given that he's been in your organization before. But Caruso 6'5", 6'6", 186, and he is immediately going to help an already top 5 defense get even better. He's 2 times on the all-defensive team. And now you can run out a unit of Shai, Caruso, Dort, J-Dub, Chet, and it's unfathomable, like, how you can score on that team. And Caruso shoots 40% from beyond the arc. All defensive team, 40% from beyond the arc, and this play finisher next to these high-gravity guys, and these guys that are going to help him defensively, make him look even better defensively. It's impossible not to love this move for Oklahoma City. They do not completely change their identity. They do not throw a curveball into what they've already built. Caruso fits what this Thunder team is all about like a glove. I mean, you look at what he was able to accomplish with Chicago. As a spot-up, scorer, he averaged a point per possession. In transition, 1.1 points per possession. Anything above a point per possession is just great. As a cutter, 1.2 points per possession. In the pick and roll, 1.1. Like, I think he'll be used more as a screen and pop guy in OKC, which, like, he only had 16 field goal attempts in that scenario with the Bulls. But I think that screen and pops might be something that they can unlock in OKC as Mark is able to do. But the big kicker here is a 40% three-point shooter who can play defense. Like, you think of what they asked of Josh Giddey. They asked him to help out on the glass, which, given his frame, he was able to do, albeit inconsistent effort. And so, like, whenever he gave effort, he was really good at it. When he didn't give effort, he was not good at it. So, like, he did help on the glass, and that was massive. But other than that, everything else they asked him to do was unfair to Josh and was something that Josh could not do. They asked Josh to sit in the corner and be a catch-and-shoot guy. He can't do that. And that's not a slight to Josh Giddey. That is not his fault. Like, that was never going to be his skill set. Now you've got a guy who that is the skill set. On catch-and-shoot opportunities, Alex Caruso shoots 41% from the floor. That's the 84th percentile in points per possession on catch-and-shoot looks. At the rim, he's a good rim finisher, 59%. He can attack off the catch and at least keep the ball moving, and could acquire some hockey assists with how good this Thunder team is. So you really have only lost some of that Josh Giddey rebounding help, but you've gained an easier flow offensively. You've gained a much better defense. You've gained a really good play finisher. And you've got to figure out how to make up for the rebounds that Josh Giddey could collect. Now, by that same token, what did Josh Giddey's rebounds look like? It wasn't as though he was out-skying people and out-muscling them. He was in the right spot at the right time whenever he was locked in and engaged. I can promise you that Alex Caruso will be locked in and engaged. I can promise you that the motor and the effort concerns that sometimes wane for Josh Giddey if his offense didn't go right, that will never be a problem for Alex Caruso. He is a first-team member of the all-juice team in the NBA. Like, he's going to give you that effort and motor every single time. And so without Vucevic next to him, without some of these Bulls next to him, the ball's going to carry him his way, and I think that he'll be ready to, somewhat, negate the loss of Giddey's 6 rebounds per game compared to Caruso's 3 rebounds per game, which, again, 3 rebounds a game next to Vucevic, next to Patrick Williams, next to these guys, like, it's pretty good. Like, we talked about Patrick Williams as a potential Bulls target, and the reason that we kind of gave him a pass for his lack of rebounding is because of how much Vucevic just sucks up as a rebounder, how much Drummond just sucks up as a rebounder. So I'm curious to see if he can like have a potential, you know, higher uptick of impact on the glass. But maybe he can't, and then that's still fine because of what he upticks you defensively, what he upticks you as a 3-point shooter, especially the drive and kick opportunities that you can give Caruso. It's just going to be fascinating to see how they all come together. And the Thunder have plenty of room to grow, but what they're building, especially with this trade with Caruso, is special. And it's special in a very particular avenue that I'll tell you about coming up. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at Prize Picks. Check out Prize Picks today. Prize Picks is great. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedInNBA. That's prizepicks.com/LockedInNBA. And whenever you do, you can use our code LockedInNBA, and you're going to get an instant deposit match up to $100. It's an instant deposit match up to $100. What's so fun about Prize Picks is it's the best way to play daily fantasy sports because you're just simply looking at the projections, and you project whether they have more or less than their Prize Pick projections. That's all there is to it. So you're not competing against other players who know more than you or these fantasy gurus that do this for a living. It's just you versus the projected numbers. You pick 2 to 6 players and you guess their stat projection. It's good for the W. It's good for Major League Baseball. The Stanley Cup playoffs are still on. It's good for that. You can bet. You can even project on esports like Counter-Strike 2 and Call of Duty and League of Legends. And of course, whenever the NBA rolls back around, the NBA as well. So go there right now and you can even turn a $10 deposit into an instant $10 bonus, and then turn that into $1,000 with your projections, so long as they're right. So go download the Prize Pick app, download the app today, use code LockedInNBA for the first deposit match up to $100. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Well, let's see what comes next. Whenever you look at this trade, the Thunder are building an unbelievable defense. Like in the modern NBA, whenever there's so much scoring, when you need so many versatile options defensively, here's who the Thunder can throw at you. Lu Dort, Alex Caruso, right? Lu Dort, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, Jalen Williams, SGA. They have Chet Holmgren anchoring the whole thing. When will you ever get a break? When can you ever not look to the scores table and have the LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard reaction when the Thunder are rotating in these fresh defenders? The Thunder have compiled an infinity stone of defenders to where there is no team on earth that has enough go-to primary, put it all on me scores that will not be accounted for all 48 minutes. And like, that's not even including guys like Wiggins, who's an underrated defender. That's not including, the uptick in defense from Isaiah Joe. That's not including, whatever the rest of your roster can become. So like this Thunder team, I think will be the best defense in the NBA. I think this Thunder team will be the most, harassment and pesky and frustrating defense to play against. I'm not sure how we can track this, but I think that this Thunder team will create the most frustration fouls where the star player on the opposing roster is throwing a tantrum and they get a frustration foul or they get teed up for complaining or whatever. Like this Thunder defense is going to accost you. This Thunder defense is going to just be the bane of your existence. And we've already seen what this team looks like whenever they're out in transition, whenever they're running, and now they've added a 40% three-point shooter to the mix. A 40% three-point shooter who, has not gotten to play with teams that have this much gravity, this much spacing, this many open catch-and-shoot looks. Like whenever you saw him thrive in Los Angeles, it was an ability to shoot 48% from three, albeit only 2 attempts per game. 48% from three on 2 attempts a game in 18-19. He had 40% from three in 2020 and 21, whenever he shot 2.5 attempts per game. And then last year, he got to shoot 4.7 attempts per game and shot 40% from three. it's going to be so much easier on him to get these looks and have more of these looks as the time progresses in OKC. So the Thunder trade in what has been their worst fit on a 57-win team for an instant upgrade in almost every area. Now, again, we've been excited about this move for the Thunder. I know that there's a lot of Australian listeners. Do not conflate this with just dumping on Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey is going to have a good career, and this is the best move for him. Like I know that he has a lot of friends in OKC. I know that he's been great, and from interviewing him with the media, like he's one of my favorite players to interview because he's so open, so candid, so honest. But this is going to give him a chance to actually show how good he is. And there's a lot of people in OKC that maybe only watch Thunder games that doubt how talented Josh Giddey is. Josh Giddey is going to be a very, very, very talented ball player. It's just not going to be in OKC, and it was never going to be in OKC realistically. And so we'll see what the official trade package looks like. We're still waiting on that. But Caruso played under Mark with the OKC Blue. Now he's back with Mark with the Thunder. And whenever you look at this trade, I think it just reaffirms to you how serious that this Thunder team is and how aggressive that this Thunder team is willing to be. And I don't think that they're finished yet. Like, I don't think that their plan is, well, let's figure out the Josh Giddey situation and then just, sit on our hands, right? Now, maybe, nothing else can materialize from this market. But I think that they're going to try. Like, even after this trade, the Thunder only took on, $1.5 million in salary. So they can still create in salary $33.7 million this summer to clean up some of their deficiencies. Woj just released the ESPN story. I'm going to click on it right now and see if the full package is in there, unless this was just a 1-for-1 swap. The report from Woj still only has Josh for Caruso listed. So like a 1-for-1 swap is something that you really like if you're the Thunder. And for the Bulls, they clearly would rather extend Josh Giddey and like go into a more youth movement and let Josh Giddey play on the ball and facilitate things that way. But this move was aggressive, and it got them what I think to be the best defense in the NBA. I'd be shocked if they're finished. And maybe this was like the big one, like this was the emergency pod, 3 pods on this one topic type of move. But I still think that the roster spot will not go to waste here. The open roster spots will not go to waste for OKC. And I just think that Thunder fans, like knowing the type of fan base OKC has and what they look for in players, they're going to instantly fall in love with Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso is one of those guys who, like, if he's not on your team, you look around and wonder to yourself, how can we land in Alex Caruso? How can we land a guy of his caliber to kind of round out this roster? But a pesky isolation defender who I think will look even better defensively because of the talent around him. The excitement level, if you're a Thunder fan listening to this show, should be really high. So you still have the 12th overall pick to work with. You still have $33 million in cap space to work with this summer. You still have a mountain of future draft assets to work with this summer. And you got one of the league's best defenders who shoots 40% from 3. Pretty good. It's pretty good. Let's talk about what this means for on the court. Is Alex Caruso immediately going to be a starting level player for OKC? We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, about our good friends over at LinkedIn. Check out LinkedIn right now because they're the best job board out there. They're not just another job board. They're the job board because they understand what it's like for a small business. You want to find qualified candidates that you want to talk to and that are right for your role. fast and in a hurry. That's why you want to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes the best place to hire LinkedIn. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy whenever you have this many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, 80% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within a 24-hour period. LinkedIn knows that as a small business owner, you're wearing so many hats that you want to be able to hire quickly. And that's what you can do at LinkedIn Jobs. Check it out today because 2.5 million small businesses already use LinkedIn for hiring. Go there right now. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedInNBA. Terms and conditions do apply to post your job for free. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Well, whenever you look at this trade, I think it accomplished something good for Josh Giddey. It accomplished something good for the Thunder. What does it look like heading into the offseason? I honestly think that you just put Caruso in Giddey's spot. Like, you put Caruso there, it's Shai, Caruso, Dort, Dub, Chet, and then you flush out the rest of your rotation where you have you have Wallace, you have Joe, you have Wiggins, you have J. Will and Kinrich, and you stagger in Dub and Chet with that secondary unit as well. Plus, again, you still have the 12th overall pick. Which we're going to have draft profiles and stuff all throughout the weekend, but we had to interrupt our draft profile and draft coverage for the annual Sam Presti pre-draft trade. It happened a little later this year. It usually happens in the finals, and it's just a trade with Denver to kick a pick down the road. But this time, it's an emergency pod-worthy trade that has a lot of you stirring. So it's very exciting to cover this team. Very exciting to see all the comments that we've gotten already about wanting an emergency pod and everything else. But, I think that whenever you look at this, Woj even put in a story that like they want to see Chet be more of a playmaker. Caruso can do a little bit of playmaking, but obviously you do lose the playmaking chops of Josh Giddey. Like, Josh has the potential to be, as a lead guard, a very fantastic playmaker for Chicago. But yeah, I mean, the responsibility was going to fall on those three guys, and it always was going to fall on those three guys. Chet, J-Dub, and Shai I'm talking about. So you've done your best to give them the best complementary pieces. Like, as much as we just talked about what this means for the defensive end, what does this mean for the roster? I want you to really sit back and ask yourself, and I know we just saw Boston win the championship, how many teams are building around a core three? It's like they already have their core three in place. They already have their super duper star in Shai, like super duper MVP caliber guy in Shai, should have won MVP this year. And they have two rising stars in J-Dub and Chet, who none of us think are long for their first All-Star bid and beyond. How many franchises have given those guys more resources? Like, whenever you list out the complement of pieces around them. So take the top three guys, and then off of that tree, off that tree trunk of the top three guys, you have Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, Kenrich Williams, Cason Wallace, you have Isaiah Joe, you have J. Will, you have Wiggins, you have the potential for Jang, you have the potential for J. Will, and you have the potential for the outcome of whatever the number 12 overall pick is. Like, they've done a really, really, really good job of getting the complementary pieces. Now it's up to these young stars. Shai's there. Shai's a bona fide playoff riser, killer, MVP, all the superlatives. You got to get Chet there. You got to get J-Dub there. But the very moment that those guys officially take that leap, which could happen as soon as October, like the very moment those guys officially take that leap, you have a championship level core around them. I feel very confident in saying that, like, if you told executives, like, this is your complementary pieces, these are your peripheral pieces, can you build a championship core around these pieces? They'd say yes. You say these are your pieces plus $33 million in cap space plus a billion first round picks, a billion draft picks in general, they would say, where do I sign? I will give my proverbial NBA life away to get a crack at that. And you just happen to have one of the smartest executives in the sport, at the helm already, with the stability of a really good coach, the stability of a good front office, the stability of a franchise that has good ownership, that doesn't meddle or do anything kind of crazy. It's an exciting time. And again, this was an aggressive move. The Thunder deserve a lot of credit because there was some fear lingering around the Thunder fan base of like, what if that was the only shot for the Thunder? What if they just run it back and sit on their hands and don't do anything? When in reality, like, that was never going to be what they were going to do. And so whenever you cast all that on to this franchise and then they don't do that, they deserve a lot of credit for not doing that, for not just running it back and everything. And this was a tough move to make, I'm sure. Like, you invested a 6th overall pick in this guy who is so passionate about playing for your franchise that, like, he got choked up a little bit at his exit interview. And I say that endearingly of like, this guy cares, man. He cares. He's passionate. He really wants to make it work and become a really good basketball player. And ideally would have wanted to make it work in Oklahoma City. Like, it is hard to make that decision emotionally. And so they deserve credit for doing that. Whenever they could have easily casted it aside as, well, they're already a 57-win team. Let's just try it again and see what happens. But that complacency is not where you want to be. This aggressiveness is where you want to be. And if you followed what Sam Presti's done, throughout his tenure as a GM, which you have a pretty lengthy rap sheet at this point, I struggle to think that this is going to be over. Like, I struggle to think that this is like the end of it. But even if it's just making the 12th overall pick, like, even if it's just case, you add in Caruso, you add in the 12th overall pick, wow, you're set up. And you still have so many, so much luxury to go. So it's a bittersweet day, of course, but wow, this is going to be fun for the future. This was an off-the-cuff emergency pod full and through, so we'll have a more organized show for you coming in the coming hours and days, and we'll spend a long time talking about this and recapping this move, recounting this move especially. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for caring about my opinion to where you would want to hear about it and ask me about the emergency pod. We have just finished recording it. It's going to be uploaded ASAP. But again, thank you so much. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.